Shabbat Shalom. All right, let's get into our study today. Our study is entitled Smashing Idols. Smashing Idols. How many of you like to smash things? Yeah? When you're frustrated? Yeah. When you don't want anything anymore, you can just like throw it away, smash that stuff. It's not working anymore. But we don't want to smash the things that are good, the things of good value. We want to hang on to those things, right? Smashing idols. We're not going through the Torah portion for the week, but I'm just taking a little thought out of this week's portion. How many of you were able to read the Torah portion for this week? Yeah? Good. If you haven't gotten to it yet, remember Shabbat is the best time to go over the portion, all right? Allow God to reveal a truth to you as you study. This portion is continuing the story of Jacob. So right now, a little bit of a pop quiz, all right? What do we know about Jacob so far? From his birth up to this point, before he was called Israel. Who were Jacob's parents? Isaac and Rebecca. Who is Jacob's brother? Esau, his twin brother, right? Esau was red and hairy, and he was a warrior out in the field. And what about Jacob? Homeboy? He could? He was smooth. He was mama's boy, right? Mommy's favorite. What else do we know about Jacob? Last week's Torah portion, we read about how Jacob went to his uncle Laban's house, right? To find a bride. And he found himself more than one bride. He found two. And more than the two, also the maidservants. All right, so he walked out with like 4 ladies from his uncle Laban's house. What a guy. We know that Jacob was a little deceitful in his dealings. You know, he was a little sneaky. All right, he tricked his brother out of a birthright. All right, he tricked his brother out of a blessing. He tricked his uncle Laban out of the good herds of sheep and everything. And he walked away with a lot more than his uncle Laban was willing to give him when he left his house. During this portion, at the beginning of this portion, we remember that Jacob ran away from home to his uncle Laban's house, trying to get away from his brother Esau, right? And Esau, this is where he's going to be reunited with his brother Jacob, somewhere on the path. Jacob learns that his brother Esau is coming along with like 400 people, all right? And he's like, man, my brother's coming, he's going to kill me. I cheated him out of a birthright, cheated him out of a blessing. What is he going to do? So Jacob decided, I'm going to send forward a bunch of presents before me. I'm going to send some cattle or whatever, some sheep. I'm going to send forth some gifts, and hopefully it'll appease Esau. And if the servants were told, if Esau asks, where's Jacob, just tell them that I'm behind, and I'm coming, right? And then he also put his family before him, all right? And if they were to encounter Esau, they were to tell him, Jacob's just behind us. Okay. So this is where we are, and we're going to be reading from Genesis chapter 32. He got up that night, took his 2 wives, his 2 slave girls, and his 11 children, and forded the Yabok. He took them and sent them across the stream, then sent his possessions across, and Yaakov was left alone. Then some man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he did not defeat Yaakov, he struck Yaakov's hip socket, so that his hip was dislocated while wrestling with him. The man said, let me go, because it's daybreak. But Yaakov replied, I won't let you go unless you bless me. The man asked, what is your name? And he answered, Yaakov. Then the man said, from now on you will no longer be called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have shown your strength to both God and men, and have prevailed. That word there is showing your strength, or you have wrestled with. It's the Hebrew word sarita. Sarita comes from a root word, sarah, And Sarah means to wrestle, contend with, or strive. All right? There's some sort of a battle going on there, but it also means a demonstration of strength. It also means power. It's funny, Sarah is the name that was given to Abraham's wife. Sarai, her name was changed to Sarah. And it means to wrestle with God. And we remember how Sarah wrestled with her handmaiden, right? The mother, Tamar. Is it Tamar? Hagar, sorry. A lot of names in the Bible. Hagar and her son Ishmael. And Sarah took matters in her own hands. She wanted to give Abraham a son, and she thought, here's my handmaiden, take her. And Sarah had to wrestle with her decision, and she had to wrestle with God. But she showed great strength throughout until the end. Also, at the point where Abraham took his son Isaac up to the mountain and Sarah was left behind, imagine, she didn't know what was going to happen, but she was still a woman that demonstrated great strength, wrestling in her old age. You see the same word, Sarah, show up again in the book of Hosea, talking about the same story of Jacob. Hosea 12, 3-7. Jehovah also has a grievance against Judah. He will punish Yaakov according to his ways and pay him back for his misdeeds. In the womb he took his brother by the heel. In the strength of his manhood he fought with God. Yes, he fought an angel and won. He wept and pleaded with him. Then at Bethel he found him, and there he would later speak with us. Adonai Elohei Zavaot. Jehovah is his name. So you return to your God, hold fast to grace and justice, and always put your hope in your God. It's interesting here in Hosea, we read that Jacob wrestled with an angel, a malach, a messenger, a man. We read in Genesis that it was a man that he wrestled with. Here later it's revealed an angel, or a messenger from God. We know that this person that he wrestled with was of God. Some say it was God himself, coming using this form of man, or a malach, to change Jacob's name to Israel. Why the name change? It's interesting. Let's look at the meaning of Jacob. It means supplanter or a heel catcher. And we remember reading that in the womb, when the twins were born, Esau came out first, and Jacob was holding Esau's heel. All right? We also remember reading that there was a battle in the womb of their mother when they were in there. Two nations were already warring together in the womb. Okay? But here now, we see that Jacob was holding the heel of his brother. It also means to follow. One who follows on another's heels. So Jacob, up to this point, before he wrestled with this angel, all right, and his name was later changed to Israel, it's fitting because Israel means one who struggles with God. He who strives with God. And then we see the whole nation of Israel later through the rest of the story, struggling with God. We see them in the wilderness, struggling to follow God. God gives them his decrees, gives them his commands, and they're struggling with it, living in that tension. They know the right thing to do, all right? But the human nature is one that doesn't do so naturally, the things that God wants us to do. So that word, Israel, Sarah, shares the same root with Israel. Yod, Shin, and Resh. This is like a pressing and pressure and teeth or fire. Resh is like the head, following behind the head of a man. Okay? Sarah. And El is another word that we use to call God. El. The Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, and that always denotes God. And the Lamed is his shepherd's rod, his staff that leads and guides. So it is God guiding. All right? It is God as the ultimate authority. It is God that sets the rule for the people that are struggling and wrestling with him, Israel. All right. I want you guys to think right now of a time when you might have wrestled with God. Have you ever had an experience? You might not have physically wrestled with Him, but in your spirit, in your soul, you knew that you were confronted with the truth of God. You were confronted with God calling you to do something, to change something. Maybe He was calling you to do something that sounded impossible or you're just not comfortable with. Have you ever wrestled with God before? Sometimes it comes because other people in our life that we love, that we value, they want us to do things contrary to what God wants. And sometimes when we're in our journey and we want to start following God, we say, I want to follow you, but I still want all this other stuff too. In the New Testament, there's a guy named Paul, the Apostle Paul. And he states this so well. He's like, why do I do the things that I don't want to do? And why do I always do the things I don't want to do? And I don't do the things that I want to do? And he's talking about the conflict between the mind and what he knows is right, and his human nature, his passions, his desires that war against what he knows the truth is. And God's truth does that, doesn't it, guys? It like puts a mirror up to us and it makes us face ourselves. And God says, like, this is my standard. This is what I want for you. This is how I want you to live and really live. If you want the more abundant life, this is what it looks like. And you're like, I do want the more abundant life, but why am I not experiencing that yet? Why don't I have that shalom in my spirit? Why do I keep living the way that's contrary to your way? I want to do what's right, but I just keep slipping up. We blame the devil. Oh, the devil made me do it. Right? It's all our choice. Everything we do is a choice. You can choose to live His way or choose to live your own way. But here's the thing, friends. When we choose to do things our own way, knowing full well what God's standard is, that is idolatry. You're making a God of your own within yourself. That is a form of idolatry. Okay? And that's what we're talking about today, smashing idols. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's get into this here. Exodus chapter 20. Anybody know what's held in that passage? Exodus 20? The 10 Commandments, the 10 words. 10 words of God. Here we have the first 2 words. Then God said all these words. The first word was, verse 2, I am Jehovah your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. That's the first word. The second word there in verse 3, we see it signified by the bet, the second letter of the alphabet. Aleph, bet. The second word, you are to have no other gods before me. You are not to make for yourselves a carved image of any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water below the shoreline. You are not to bow down to them or serve them, for I, Jehovah your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parent to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the 1000th generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvot, my commands. So I know on the 10 Commandments, they kind of split it up. And we learned that you are to have no other gods before me, that's 1. And the second one is you are to make no idols for yourself, that's 2. But in reality, those commands are all actually just one word. You are to have no other gods before me, no idols, nothing else. You bow down to nothing but me, no other God beside me. He is to be holy and set apart. That was his, I guess if it's a command, you say the first command.
The Protestant Bibles start as a subtitle called 10 Commandments. The original doesn't have it. Doesn't have that. And they start with verse 3. Because verse 2 doesn't sound like a command. You follow?
Yeah.
But the first declaration, the first word, is verse 2. That's why the Septuagint, the Greek Bible has it correct. They call it Decalogue, the 10
10
words, not commands. Because the first one doesn't sound like a command, but it's the most important one. It's the author of all of this. The principles to live by. The author, it's like you receive a letter and it says, hey, this is fake. You know? But they hated that. Who cares about that?
Who cares where those words came from?
Yeah.
Right? These are his words.
The source. This is very important.
Yeah.
Okay? So that subtitle, Ten Commandments, they did not exist in the original Hebrew Bible.
That's right.
Okay? They were 10 words, 10
10
declarations.
words. Thank you for that. So we see here the first 2 words, all right? How that relates to this little story. We're going to be reading, it's a few slides, hang in there with me. Have you heard the story of the golden calf? Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to go through the entire chapter of Exodus 32. And I want you to look at all the details that you probably have missed. You know, okay, yeah, they made a calf and Moses got mad and he smashed the tablets. And we think that's it. But there's so much more when we actually look each line by line and read through the scripture. Exodus 32, the golden calf. When the people saw that Moshe was taking a long time to come down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Get busy and make us gods to go ahead of us, because this Moshe, the man that brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him." He went up into the mountain to be with God, receiving the words. They were waiting almost 40 days at this point, okay? About 38 days or so. Aaron said to them, "Have your wives, sons, and daughters strip off their gold earrings and bring them to me." The people stripped off their gold earrings and brought them to Aaron. He received what they gave him, melted it down, and made it into a shape of a calf. They said, "Israel, here is your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt." On seeing this, Aaron built an altar in front of it and proclaimed, "Tomorrow is to be a feast for Jehovah." Early the next morning, they got up and offered burnt offerings and presented peace offerings. Afterwards, the people sat down to eat and drink. Then they got up to indulge in revelry. Jehovah said to Moshe, "Go down, hurry. Your people whom you brought up from the land of Egypt have become corrupt. So quickly they have turned aside from the way I ordered them to follow. They have cast a metal statue of a calf, worshipped it, sacrificed to it, and said, 'Israel, here's your God who brought you up from the land of Egypt.'" Jehovah continued speaking to Moshe. "I have been watching these people, and you can see how stiff-necked they are. Now leave me alone so that my anger can blaze against them, and I can put an end to them. I will make a great nation out of you instead." Moshe pleaded with Jehovah his God. He said, "Jehovah, why must your anger blaze against your own people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a strong hand? Why let the Egyptians say it was with evil intentions that he led them out, to slaughter them in the hills and wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent. Don't bring such disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Yitzhak, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your very self. You promised them, 'I will make your descendants as many as the stars in the sky, and I will give all this land that I have spoken about to your descendants, and they will possess it forever.' Jehovah then changed his mind about the disaster he had planned for his people. Moshe turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets inscribed on both sides, on the front and on the back. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. When Yehoshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moshe, it sounds like war in camp," he answered. "That is neither the clamor of victory nor the wailings of defeat. What I hear is the sound of people singing." But the moment Moshe got near the camp, when he saw the calf and the dancing, his own anger blazed up. He threw down the tablets he had been holding and shattered them at the base of the mountain. Seizing the calf they had made, he melted it in the fire and ground it to powder, which he scattered on the water. Then he made the people of Israel drink it. How do you like that calf? Yeah. Moshe said to Aaron, "What did these people do to you to make you lead them into such terrible sin?" Aaron replied, "My Lord, should it be so angry? You know what these people are like, that they are determined to do evil. So they said to me, 'Make us gods to go ahead of us, because this Moshe, this man that brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him.' I answered them, Anyone with gold, strip it off. So they gave it to me. I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. Right. When Moshe saw that the people had gotten out of control, because Aaron had allowed them to get out of control to the duration of their enemies, Moshe stood at the entrance to the camp and shouted, "Whoever is for Yehovah, come to me." All the descendants of Levi rallied around him. He told them, "Here is what Yehovah, the God of Israel, says. Each of you put his sword on his side and go up and down the camp from gate to gate, and every man is to kill his own kinsman, his own friend, and his own neighbor." The sons of Levi did just what Moshe said, and that day 3,000 of the people died. Moshe said, "You have consecrated yourselves today to Yehovah, because every one of you has been against his own son and against his own kinsmen, in order to bring a blessing on yourselves today." The next day Moshe said to the people, "You have committed a terrible sin. Now go up to Yehovah. Maybe I will be able to atone for your sin." Moshe went back to Yehovah and said, "Please, these people have committed a terrible sin, and they have made themselves God out of gold. Now if you will just forgive their sin. But if you won't, then I beg you, blot me out of your book, which you have written." Yehovah answered Moshe, "Those who have sinned against me are the ones I will blot out of my book. Now go and lead the people to the place I told you about. My angel will go ahead of you. Nevertheless, the time for punishment will come, and then I will punish them for their sin." Yehovah struck people with a plague because they had made the calf, the one Aaron made. Now remember, this was very early in their journey, and all these people that were there, all the adults that were there, none of them were able to enter the promised land. Remember that? After wandering the wilderness for 40 years, that whole first generation that left Egypt, all the adults there, none of them entered the promised land, except for Joshua and Caleb, right? They were the only adults that, from this generation, that survived. Not even Moses and his siblings were able to enter. So for their sin, they were punished, and they were not allowed to enter the promised land. Okay. We look back at that, you know, when you hear that, unless you hate your brother or sister, your mother, father, right? You can't really follow him. And hate, it's not hate in the way that we understand hate. But it's like you don't love them more than you love God. You don't make an idol out of your spouse, out of your loved ones. You don't put them ahead of God, right? And here we see in a very literal way, it was very serious. Those that did not want to align with Yehovah, they were put to death. It was their choice. Moshe gave them a choice. Come to me if you stand with Yehovah, right? It's not to be taken lightly, these things. Visuals help me. Moshe throwing the tablets of stone, touched by God, penned by God. And why a golden calf? The golden calf and the gods that came from Egypt, all right, is part of their traditions. There were gods like the Apis bull from Egypt, all right. We see in Genesis 35, verse 1 to 7, God said to Yaakov, "Get up, go up to Bethel and live there, and make there an altar to God, who appeared to you when you fled Esau, your brother." Then Yaakov said to his household and all the others with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods that you have with you. Purify yourselves and put on fresh clothes. We're going to move on and go up to Bethel. There I will build an altar to God, who answered me when I was in distress and stayed with me wherever I went." They gave Yaakov all the foreign gods in their possession and the earrings they were wearing, and Yaakov buried them under the pistachio tree near Shechem. While they were traveling, a terror from God fell upon the cities around them, so that none of them pursued the sons of Yaakov. Yaakov and all the people with him arrived at Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. He built an altar and called the place El Bethel, God of Bethel, because it was there that God was revealed to him at the time when he was fleeing from his brother. We remember in Genesis 28, that's where we read about Jacob's ladder, right? He was fleeing his brother on his way to his uncle Laban's house, and he was about to leave this land, and in this dream, God showed him that, you know what, I'm going to be with you. At that time, gods were territorial. They belonged to a particular territory. That was the understanding. And it was strange that here's this God that actually goes with you. Once you leave a boundary, it's like you're walking away from the God that's over that territory. But this God was different. This God wasn't bound to a territory or a place, like a God in Richmond Hill versus a God in Thornhill. Once you cross that boundary, or once you cross Steeles into North York, it's a different God. All right? Like, I can't leave Richmond Hill because my God in Richmond Hill won't go with me. But this God, he's like, I will be with you wherever you go. There's no restrictions on this God. All right? And this is where God first revealed himself to Jacob. I will be with you wherever you go. Don't be afraid to cross over. Remember, the Hebrew is a crossing over. All right? It's taking you out of what you know, out of that place of comfort, and bringing you across somewhere else. You're crossing over, and God goes with you. It's a beautiful thing about how God did this with all three of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He did it with all three of them. And each time he gave his covenant, he reiterated the covenant he was making, the promise. I will make a great nation out of you. I will give your people this land. All right? But notice here in this passage, this is after he saw his brother Esau and everything, and they continued moving on. To honor God, the first thing that Yaakov had them do, get rid of all your foreign gods that you have with you. They used to carry idols with them, right? His wife stole some idols, right? From her father, from Laban's house. So they had to get rid and smash all those idols, get rid of them. He buried them under a pistachio tree. All right? And that's what it's like. Before we honor God with anything, friends, we can't come to God while we're still carrying other idols with us. We can't go to God when we're revering other things above him. How are we going to be honoring him, serving him? That's not an offering. No. It's a slap in the face. Remember his first command. I am the Lord your God. Right? His first word. His second word, you shall have no other gods before me. So is he your God? Is Jehovah your God?
Yes.
Have no other gods before him. Alright? Those 10 words, it still applies. If you claim that he is your God, are we not to worship him the way that he wants to be worshipped? You see, Jehovah gave his instructions of how he is to be worshipped. But the people practiced their traditions instead. The traditions they knew from Egypt. Sure, they came out of Egypt. They were set apart from Egypt. But the spirit of Egypt was still inside them. All the things that they knew that they relied on. How are we supposed to worship a God we can't see? Give us a God that we could follow. They needed an idol. They needed a statue. That was a tradition that they understood, a tradition that they wanted to hang on to. And they said, well, this is Jehovah. We're going to worship this guy. This is Jehovah. And then they sacrificed to this bull and said, we're having a feast unto Jehovah that led us out of Egypt. You see how traditions like that, imagine if Moshe didn't come down from the mountain and a new religion was started there amongst these people. And they said, well, God led us out of Egypt, and this is our God, this bull. And the rest of the whole time, nobody was there to smash this idol, and everyone just ended up going along with it. Imagine what that would have meant for the people. Well, our God goes with us everywhere. So we're going to take this God with us everywhere. And we're going to make a bull every time we have to go somewhere.
A question.
Yeah.
But Aaron was part of it too. Does that mean that Aaron agreed that,
Of course.
okay, let's build a bull?
Yeah, he told them to give them their gold.
Right.
Yeah.
He facilitated what the people wanted.
Yeah, he gave the people what they wanted. Imagine the pressure. You know, the head guy, Moshe, he disappears. He's gone 40 days. Aaron's left in charge. And everyone's like, come on, what's going on? Aaron must have felt extreme pressure. He's like, fine. He finally gives up. Just give me your gold then. If this is what you want, have your way. Right? But imagine how Aaron must have felt when his brother came down with the tablets. And man, what a spectacle that must have been. I would have been fearing for my life, totally ashamed.
I want to share something about that second word. It says, you are not to make for yourselves a carved image.
Yeah.
And people think that idols are just something that you see,
Sure.
that is formed, carved from wood or stone. But the next phrase is key. It says, for any kind of representation of anything. And that includes whatever we conceive
Yeah.
in the walls of our skull,
The imagination
in our
of our
minds.
Yeah.
Anything we imagine is a representation of that.
That's
So an idol in our minds is included in that command. Anything that is born out of men's imagination is included.
So I think on that line, thanks for bringing that up. It brings us right to our next point. Syncretism. Everybody say syncretism. You gotta understand this word. It's a combination of separate concepts into one new, unique idea. Syncretism. Okay? When we look at religious syncretism, what does that look like? Okay? You have man-made religious beliefs on one side, and then you have God-given revelation on the other side. And you blend the two together, and you come up with this new syncretized form of worship. And that was kind of what was happening here at the bottom of Mount Sinai, while they were waiting. God-given revelation, oh, the God that brought us out of Egypt. And then, well, we believe that this calf is our God that brought us out. And they blended it together, and it would have been the beginning of a new syncretized religion.
Mind you, their intention was to worship the God who brought them out of Egypt.
That's right.
I think they failed in the application of that.
All right. And this is where we get a little edgy. Modern Christianity today. Modern Christianity today was really born out of a blend of Roman paganism and Hebrew beliefs. We took the scriptures and the story of Jesus, and in the early 2nd, 3rd centuries, Roman paganism crept in, and they were blended together, and out came this new religion called Christianity. And that's the same Christianity that we're practicing today. And over time, it got syncretized more and more with all the cultural things around us. Christianity in the West right now, God told us how He wants to be worshipped, and we say, but we want to worship You this way. And we think that's okay. It wasn't okay at Mount Sinai, and it's not okay today. Who are we to change the way that God wants to be worshipped? He told us how He is to be worshipped. And here we come up with our own ideas. Well, this is new and novel, let's just do it this way. And we compromise and we think, oh, it's not a big deal. Grace, grace, we're fine, we're safe. Modern Christianity took on different systems. When you look at the church today, it looks a lot like the mystery Babylon religions of old. Same sort of systems, structures, the traditions, the changing of the calendar, all right, the worship structure. Modern Christianity today, it rejects Torah, what God writes about in His scriptures, the words that He gave. They redefine God's command, saying, well, God didn't really mean that. This is what it means now. You cannot take away from the law. You cannot add to the law. But we do that when we think it's okay.
Sorry, I just want to add, what adds to the confusion is what we sometimes read in something that we think is true and official, like Wikipedia, which says Jesus Christ is the founder of the Christian religion. That is not true. Yeshua did not come to establish a religion.
That's right.
He never came to establish a religion. If we don't forget that, it's easy to get syncretized in stuff. Oh, but he established Christianity, and this is what Christianity is. You see?
And Christianity now has taken over whatever God was talking about in the Bible before. And that's what we call replacement theology. So this new syncretized religion steals from the Hebrew scriptures, steals everything from the Jewish people that God used, from Israel that God blessed, and said, well, that Israel messed up. We're the new Israel. Forget them, it's all about us now. A new religion, which Yeshua had never come to establish. He came to uphold his Father's law. He came to reveal everything of the scriptures. All that the scriptures were, it pointed to him. All that's in the New Testament, there were writings that point back to Yeshua. Not a new religion. And guess what? Christianity didn't exist at the time that the Bible, the New Testament books were written. Gentiles, those that were non-Jews, they were grafted into Israel and started learning the ways of Israel. They became part of Israel, all right, spiritual Israel, by faith. Before, you had to be circumcised, and it was that sort of condition in order to become part of Israel and show your allegiance. In Hebrews, it talks about by faith, we are now able to be in the book of Romans, by faith we are grafted in. We become part of that people where God made his covenant with Israel. God didn't make a covenant with Israel and say that covenant no longer stands. I'm making a new covenant with Christians. He never said that. Okay? Oh, religion, man, it's messy, it's yucky, you know, and everyone thinks that their religion is right. Modern Christianity today makes up their own holidays. Man-made traditions like Easter, Christmas, All Saints' Day, and Sunday observance. None of that is according to God's law. All right? Or not even his law. None of it is spoken about or observed by even the earliest believers in the New Testament. The church took these to replace Jehovah's appointed times, the Moedim. Jehovah said, this is how I want you to worship me. These are my special days. These are my days on the calendar. I want you to remember them. But Christianity today doesn't remember it at all. They change dates and times. They change the observances of the believing people. This is what the church says it is, and we should uphold it. Why? Because the church says so. The church fathers established this, and that's what we hang on to. It's tradition. It's just how we've always done things. Why change it? Well, why did they change it in the first place? Not much different from how Jehovah sent his son Yeshua at the perfect time in history, because his chosen people, the Jews, they started doing the exact same thing. Establishing their dates around Jehovah's things. Changing the commands of God by adding their own commands, the rabbinical teachings. And Yeshua, we see him talking to the Pharisees of the time and holding them accountable. He's saying, what are you doing? This is not what Jehovah commanded. There's a voice that needs to come up in this day and age to say the same thing, especially to those that claim to be followers of Yeshua, believers in Jehovah. How could you live the way that you continue to live, knowing the truth and choosing to do otherwise? It's more than religion.
I could add, sorry.
I know I'm intense, sorry.
It's difficult to accept what you're saying, Tim, if you did not take into account the history of how it happened.
Sure.
You see, people say, well, this is the early Christian church. The church fathers decided this.
Yeah.
You know one thing? Many of the church fathers, if not all of them, were anti-Semitic.
That's right.
They hated everything that had to do with Judaism. They erased. Yeshua was Jewish. His disciples were Jews. The Bible was written for the Jews, the Hebrew Bible, in the Jewish nation. They were anti-Semitic. And unfortunately, Constantine favored the trend, the beliefs of the church fathers, and he made it official. Don't forget, Protestantism came from Roman Catholicism. And when they broke off, they left some of the beliefs. They took some of the practices and
The
said,
system,
oh, this
the
one's
worship
okay,
structure, it all
this
kind of
one,
looks
yeah.
the same. Yeah.
But it's, they took some of the deception and never fact-checked it. And that's where the modern Christian church now comes from. Okay? I thought I'd just mention that.
That is so important. Thank you for bringing up that point, right? If any of you are sitting here today, if any of you are sitting today and you're like, well, this is a different flavor, this is quite different from how we were journeying 5 years ago, yes, it is. Right? In the past 5 years, God has been calling us out of that system. This is my understanding and my belief to this point. He was calling us back to the ancient paths, not to a new way of doing things, but returning to the ancient paths and rediscovering God's truth and the way that He wants to be worshipped. All right? We're not trying to come up with something new. We're wanting to go back at the feet of Yeshua and learn from Him. He was here to fulfill, to pleru the law, His Father's law. He was here to complete it and wrap it up and help us understand it. And He says this is the way we ought to live. Come and follow me. Follow me. Take off your old self and put on Messiah. Put off the old sinful man and put on Messiah. Start walking in His way. His Spirit now dwells in us. How could His Spirit dwell in us and then we live in such a way that there's no inkling of His Spirit being present with us at all? Put off the old self and put on Yeshua. I'm not going to get into all this pagan stuff. The word pagan, it just means it doesn't originate from God. All right? There's nothing evil about that word. All right? But how could we take things that aren't of God and use that to worship God? All right? So these sort of celebrations that we have today, it's fun, it's everywhere, it's commercialized, it's whatever. All right? But it's not of God. But in the church's name, they say, oh, well, we have to observe these times this way with all the trappings, and we allow some of the syncretism to come in as part of that celebration. Is there anything wrong with honoring the birth of Christ? No, nothing wrong with honoring the birth of Christ. All right? But we make this whole big celebration about it on December 25, and we put up trees and everything that have nothing to do with Yeshua. And we, decorate everything. We run our bank accounts dry just to give people gifts, and then start the year over again in debt.
Some of us were there before.
We were all there at some point, yeah.
It's not easy for many. It is a difficult transition because sometimes truth hurts. The question we have to ask ourselves is, do we believe that? Are we convicted of that? If we are, then we cannot carry along the old, as you said. But I must admit, it's difficult.
It is difficult, yeah. Traditions, right? traditions can become an idol for us, and sometimes it is hard to smash those idols.
So how, I'm following, but I'm struggling with 2.5 billion people that are Christian or Catholic or whatever they call themselves, and going on their merry way, believing that they're following, they have Jesus at the center of their life. What hope do they have? Like what you're saying here, and I'm trying to understand, trying to get there, but I'm struggling with why hasn't God revealed to them that they're incorrect?
That's where we come in. That's where those who have the understanding come in. We have a work to do.
That's right.
We have a job to do.
We're saved for a purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to explain why 2.5 billion practice this type of Christianity, it is because their starting point was wrong. 3rd, 4th century, Constantine and early church fathers changed it. And all of Christian, 99.9% of Christendom starts there. If you have a wrong starting point, then you did not run the full race. You see?
Yeah.
There's also a caution there though, because it's to understand that the 2.5 billion are not a hopeless lost cause.
That's right.
First
Yes.
of all, they're not. And the thing is that in all sincerity, if they really were studying and they arrived to that belief set, that is where grace and mercy covers, because they were sincere in their beliefs. If they weren't presented with anything different, if they weren't allowed the opportunity or chance, that is where grace and mercy comes in. That doesn't.
I think that's a great point. Knowing 2.5 billion people are following the Bible,
Yes.
and they believe this entire time
Yes.
that they're doing right.
Yeah.
And that,
Exactly.
So I for them it's the whole thing about that there's an island somewhere where natives they've never seen God, they live beautiful lives, they're respectful to each other, but they're not saved, right? But I'm just struggling with where's the hope? What like?
It's according to the light.
It is.
Okay, I want to address something that you're asking about. Where's the hope? And this is also another part of the secretized thing of Christianity, where evangelical Christianity has made salvation itself an idol. Okay? Let me put it this way. Evangelical Christianity today has made salvation the end point, the God of our faith. We just care about, if you're going to burn in hell if you don't accept this God, so that, okay, I'm saved. Now I'm saved and it's grace. And that's all that matters, and I'm going to go to heaven at the end of this life. It doesn't matter. And that's the end point. But that's not why we were saved. That's not why we were redeemed by God. We were redeemed for a purpose. And part of that purpose is to serve God in the day and age that we are living in now. All right? And it's God that guides that. And yes, He hides things away for a time, and then He reveals at the right time. And all of this is part of prophecy. Not that people would be lost. That is not what the Father wants. He makes that clear in His Word. He doesn't want for anybody to perish. All right? But He wants people to come to the truth. And it's up to a certain group of people. There's always going to be a remnant in every age to do the work of God, to share that truth. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Evangelical Christianity makes it about, but am I going to be saved if I do this? Am I not going to be saved if I do that? No matter what you do, that can't save you or unsave you. That's not the point. Your trust in Yeshua is what saves you. You could mess up and do things a certain way because you don't understand yet, but when you come to the knowledge of the truth, then we have a responsibility to wrestle with that truth, to struggle with God in that.
It's the accountability. It's and that's the thing, because it's like about kids, you know? Like when we're raising kids, we're giving them these principles and they operate within that space. And sometimes they might do something that might be against what we have taught them because they're operating within the knowledge that they knew. But it's more of the burden on us, really, because we're being presented with an opportunity, we're presented with a responsibility. It's what am I going to do with that responsibility? And to understand that there have been people before us and there are going to be people after us who are not presented with that responsibility, who are not presented with that opportunity. And people are not ours to necessarily save either. It's just that, am I living the way that God wants me to live? I can't take care of anybody else. I can share with them if I'm getting that push to share. And then it's that whole, okay, if I say that I'm following God, does my life reflect those values, right? Like, we can't, there's so many people that we know who sincerely, like so many people who are close to our lives that have sincerely followed their faith and have seen it through. And there is a faithfulness in that, most especially if they were never given the opportunity. It is why in the Bible, the people that Jesus came down on the hardest were the people who carried the knowledge.
That's right.
It's the Pharisees and Sadducees. Technically, they had all the knowledge, and they weren't living within that space. All the other people who couldn't even be taught to read, or who didn't even have access to the Word of God directly, we're going to see them at the end. They will be that, but also at the same time, it's our own accountability that we're looking at.
Tim, going back to what you said about our being saved becomes our idol. If we make our salvation all about everything, then everything is all about me being saved, this is a very selfish notion. That was never God's purpose. We are saved for a purpose.
I want to bring up a point. We were redeemed by the blood of Yeshua. And then he says, come, he invites people to come follow him. Make disciples of all nations. Teaching them to obey everything that's been commanded. I think we forget that, teaching them to obey everything that's been commanded. We were redeemed, and then we are taught. All right? The Israelites were redeemed from Egypt. They were saved already, and then God gave them, these are the instructions for the life I want you to live now. So when our trust and faith is in Yeshua, then we are redeemed, and then we learn from him. The purpose for our life comes when you realize, I've been saved for a purpose. How am I going to live this out? It's not, okay, am I going to put up the tree, or am I going to give gifts? And we could chop up all those things. But when you stop and ask God, what is it you want me to do? I don't think he's going to say, I want you to put up a tree, I want you to give gifts. Those are your choices. You can do whatever you want. All right? But whatever we do should also kind of line up with how he wants us to live. It might be safer for me to just kind of not go to the gathering because there are all the trappings and everything, that I might compromise the truth that I'm trying to share, right? Just by my presence there.
For a purpose, I think, is key. Because a nation, a country, doesn't form an army just for a May Day parade. It's formed to protect the nation. So, wherever it is, whether it's religious or secular or political, for a purpose, I think we should not forget that. We are saved for a purpose. We are redeemed for a purpose.
There's a fine line between tradition and mindless repetition. I'm not even talking about the holidays. I'm talking specifically about religious life and church. Yeah. Well, this is how we've always done it. Why should we change it? Even the structure of the worship program, this used to be a big one. Oh, we have to go to the church board and talk about changing the order of the service. As though, It's ridiculous. But we just do it that way because that's how it's always been done, and we won't change anything. It's tradition. Joshua had to lead the people into the promised land after Moshe died, right? It said, therefore fear Jehovah and serve him truly and sincerely. Put away the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve Jehovah. If it seems bad to you to serve Jehovah, then choose today whom you are going to serve. Will it be the gods your ancestors served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amori in whose land you are living? As for me and my household, we will serve Jehovah. Like, that's it. That's it. You have to make the choice of how you're going to live your life, what gods you're going to allow to have in your life. Or is there just one God and no other God beside him, and that's who you follow? If you follow Jehovah, he says, this is how I want you to worship me. This is how I want you to serve me. This is how I want you to conduct your life if you say you are following me. This is my household, these are my rules. You are my child, I am your father. I am the master, you are my servant. Come and serve in my kingdom. Take part of my kingdom. Represent my kingdom. Be an ambassador of the light of my kingdom in this dark world. Change the way you used to live and live in this new light. Take off the darkness and put on light. Take off the old self and put on Messiah. Kill the old gods. Step into the newness of life that he has saved you for. Step into the more abundant life and shine a light. Be a child of light in this dark world. That's the hope that we bring. That's the hope that we walk with. Let your light shine, that others will see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven.
At the end, the words of Jesus in Matthew 7:13 and 14, I think is still true. It says, there is a narrow path, there's a narrow gate, that only few will find it. The road to destruction is wide, Matthew 7:13 and 14. The road to destruction is wide, and many will follow that. The way to righteousness is narrow. It's full of jagged edges, precipices on the sides. And few are they that find it. In fact, in the parable of the sower, where he sowed the same seeds in the land, and it fell on 4 different soils. And it's only on the good soil, the good loamy soil, 1/4 of the seeds that he threw flourished. And I think we can get a clue from that. See, we do not expect that everyone who is called Christian will make it to heaven. I think from the parable of the sower, at most 1/4. And that's huge. That's still big. Of the 2 billion Christians, 1/4 of that's still big. You know? But I think we have to accept the fact that as much as the gospel is very nice, and we're all told to go and make disciples of people, not everyone will.
Well, he said go and make disciples. He didn't say go and make Christians.
Yes.
And that's why I say the evangelical Christianity of today, that's what it is. It's making Christians. Just say this prayer, now you're saved, you're now part of the club, you're going to heaven. And then they're like, wait, what about the discipleship? How do I learn to follow? How do I walk now? Oh, well, you were baptized. Don't worry, you're part of it. You're in. There's no teaching. There's no responsibility. There's no accountability. Our purpose is to go and share that truth. If we don't know the truth, how can we share it? If we just share traditions, oh, come over here, this is how we do things. It's different from that group over there. You'll have more fun here. Traditions. All right. It's funny. I saw this commercial on TV that keeps replaying, and all these Christmas ads are popping up. And there's this one commercial that ends with, "Oh, make it a man-made Christmas." You know that underwear commercial, man-made. Oh, make it a man-made Christmas. And I heard that, I'm like, but Christmas is man-made. Like it's just traditions of man, right? It just made me laugh when I heard it, right? It's so blatant. But and once again, I'm not here to demonize anybody that practices certain things. It's not what it's about. But I am here to shine light on the things. Why do we do the things that we do? Are we just mindlessly doing it because it's tradition and it's just, well, this is what we do at this time of year? Why? Because that's what we do. Okay, well, if someone comes up with a new tradition and says, oh, at this time of year, everybody has to, I don't know, cut their finger and let it bleed for 5 minutes. Because that's just what we do. Oh, you didn't do it? Do the right thing, man. Don't be such an outcast. You're supposed to cut your finger like everybody else and let it bleed for 5 minutes to show that you really care about this cause. Stand up for the cause. Stand up for the cause. Why? Why am I going to stand up for a cause? I don't know what I'm supporting. It's mindless. Don't do it. Standing for God, He gave us a brain. He gave us a will. He gave us choice. Don't let other people make the choices in your life for you. You hand over the responsibility, the gift of free choice that He gave you. You're handing that over. You're giving it away. Choose Him and what He wants all the time, and you will never go wrong. Will you get pushback from other people? Absolutely. The world will hate you if you follow Him. But guess what? I'd rather be standing on His side. When the time comes, punishment will come. I don't want to have to deal with that punishment. I'd rather just be with Him and enjoy the reward of His presence. Truth or tradition? Last few slides here. I'm not explaining the whole thing. But we know that Yeshua was not born December 25. Not even close. December 25, winter. When we look in the scriptures, it tells us exactly when He was born, and it was during the time in the fall season, around the time of Sukkot. How do we know this? There's a whole study. We've done it a couple times. I'm not going through it today, but it has to do with the birth of His cousin, the one that came before Him, John the Baptist. All right? If you want this slide, we could send it to you. It's easier to read. But it's really cool. And it has to do with the tabernacle service, the priestly cycles in the temple. All right? And all of God's stuff, it all goes back to that temple and the way He wanted to be worshipped. Okay? And all His moedim, His appointed times, including Shabbat, the 7th day Shabbat on the weekly cycle. These are His appointed times. Leviticus 23. Please review it. He says, this is how I want you to remember my days, my appointed times. You remember December 25. You remember February 14. You remember, I don't know, January 1st, whatever it is. But Jehovah has His own calendar. He tells us exactly how to observe it, how to find it, how to remember those times, to honor Him. Last verse for the day. Romans 12, verse 1 to 2. I exhort you, therefore, brothers, in the view of God's mercies, to offer yourselves as a sacrifice, living and set apart for God. This will please Him. It is the logical temple worship for you. In other words, do not let yourselves be conformed to the standards of this world. Instead, keep letting yourselves be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you will know what God wants and will agree that what He wants is good, satisfying, and able to succeed. Doesn't matter what we choose to do, what we want to do. What matters is what God wants. And if you don't know whether or not you want to align with that yet, you won't know until you step into it. You won't know until you've tasted it. Taste and see that the Lord is good. You cannot deny how good He is. All right? My son, earlier this week, he's had asparagus before. But at dinner last night, it was last night, right? The little guy, he's like, oh, asparagus, I don't want to eat it. He likes Brussels sprouts. He likes broccoli, and he's looking at the asparagus and he goes, ew, I don't want to eat that. Which said, it's kind of like a cross between broccoli and Brussels sprouts. He's like, no, you can't make me eat it. And then he saw his sister eating it, and she's like, this is really good. And all his siblings are trying to encourage him. He takes a bite, and he's like, oh, pretends he doesn't like it. He takes another bite. He's still eating. He finished the one asparagus, and he wasn't eating anything else. He had his fish and everything, right? He didn't want to eat the fish. He goes, more asparagus, please. More asparagus, please. And that's just it. Sometimes we don't think we want to come alongside with anything God wants for us. And it's like, it's good for us, all right? And he prepared it for us. And he's like, I just want you to try it. I just want you to step into it. Taste and see that this is good. And you develop a hunger for the things of God. You can't hunger for the things of God if you don't know what it tastes like. Okay? You can't thirst for Him. You can't thirst for righteousness if you've never had a little bit of that taste of righteousness before. It's an acquired taste, yeah. And over time, believe me, it's all you are going to want. And the things of the world will grow strangely dim. All right? When you focus in on Him. Very quick, with this verse, I think there's something that we miss. When Paul talks about offering yourself as a sacrifice, living and set apart, we think sacrifice, we think death, right? Offer yourselves as a sacrifice. When you go back to the temple, it's important to remember that all those animals that are slaughtered on the altar, before they're slaughtered, they are presented to God first, alive. And we ought to present ourselves to God for His service, alive, living. But then remember what Yeshua said. He says, die to yourselves. Take up your cross and follow me. We present ourselves before God. Before He uses us for His purposes, something must die. And that is our old self. That is the old gods that we must smash. That is the traditions that we hang on to, rather than trusting the faith that He's giving us. We don't trust in the faith of the church. We trust into the faith that God has given as a gift. Okay? His Spirit leads us into His truth. So we keep in step with His Spirit. When you present yourself a living sacrifice, remember the temple service. Something must die. But He wants us living and set apart. Dead things can't do anything. Right? That's why with all your life, with every breath, live for the glory of God. That's the purpose that we are saved for.
Along the lines of living sacrifice, I'm reminded of the parable between the pig and the cow. And the pig says to the cow, how come people love you? When I die, I give everything. My meat, the innards, they even pickle my feet. And the cow says, maybe it's because I give while I'm still alive. Milk, everything. And they eventually will kill me and I still give that. So they like me because I'm giving more.
When you're alive.
When you're alive.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that once you have a taste of the spotless lamb, you'll never crave for bacon and beef anymore.
That last line there, be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Guys, this is what it's about. Smashing the idols, getting rid of all those things that we hang on to. The idols that we have in our mind. All those things that are just taking up the throne of God in our mind or in our hearts. We got to smash that thing and get it out of the way, because there's only a place for one God in our heart. No man can serve two masters. You can only have one. You're either living for yourself or you're living for Him. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It doesn't happen automatically. You have to choose it. So as we enter into the end of this Gregorian calendar year, into this season of Christmas that many people are celebrating, I want you to remember, guys, a lot of what you are going to encounter, I hope that you have eyes to see all the man-made traditions that we hang on to, all the things that we have been duped by in the past. I pray that God will impress on you the way that He wants you and your family to take steps forward. Okay? It's not about celebrating or not celebrating this and that, but it's how are you going to be serving Him tomorrow and the day after? Are you keeping in step with Him? Are you following His lead? Are you worshiping and glorifying Him with your life every day? While everyone wants to celebrate the birth of Yeshua, we are celebrating because we know that Yeshua is coming again. All right? We are looking forward to prophecy that is still yet to be fulfilled. All right? The time where we get to tabernacle with Him. All right? That's why His feasts are so important. We get to celebrate this year after year, looking forward to the final time when we will finally be with Him. And that's what His feasts are all about. May the grace of our Lord Yeshua and the shalom of Yehovah our Father be with us all.